Good evening from New York. This is Thursday, November 4th, 733 days until the 2012 presidential election. And it took less than 24 hours after Republicans surged to power in Congress on a holy mission to reduce American debt for the Republicans' Tea Party kingmaker, Senator Jim DeMint, to announce to the Tea Party, "You've been had." Our fifth story tonight, DeMint is ready to increase the U.S. debt, and that's hardly the only sign the GOP is already brushing off the Tea Party's core concerns. The debt and ingratitude in a moment. First, how the House Republicans are treating that chamber's Tea Party leader, Congresswoman Michelle Bachmann, who founded the House Tea Party Caucus. She wants to join the House leadership now, and with Mike Pence stepping down as number 3 House Republican Conference Chair, there's a slot open in that GOP leadership rank. House Republican Conference Chair Michelle Bachmann, who's with me, guys? Well, not Mr. Pence and not Eric Cantor, the expected new majority leader. He supports establishment Republican Jeb Hensarling for the job. But can an establishment candidate like Hensarling win support from self-proclaimed Tea Party House members? Yeah, Congressman Jason Chaffetz chose Hensarling over Bachmann. Chaffetz didn't even support Bachmann's creation of the Tea Party caucus. So how about the queen of the Tea Party, the mother of all Mama Grizzlies? Is Palin willing to call out the House leadership for selling out the Tea Party? Does she support putting a real Tea Partier rather than another establishment Republican in the GOP leadership? Her quote, "I'm taking a position on who gets to sit in the big boy high chair this morning for breakfast, trig or trip. Leadership in the U.S. Congress this morning, nah, not till after the Cheerios." Which might explain why, just 4 months after launching the Tea Party caucus, Ms. Bachmann has now announced a new caucus, which she says would have the power to block bills from being passed. A caucus that would be irrelevant because Republicans have a solid majority now, unless she's planning on using it to deny establishment Republicans that majority on bills she personally does not like.
That's right. And that's why if enough of us can stick together, maybe even 20 to 25, we can stop any bill from passing. We need 218 votes to pass a bill, and Republicans have now more than 218. But if you have a very small group of members, 20 to 25 members, if we can hang together, and if an unconstitutional bill comes before us, something like a stimulus or a government takeover of health care, we can stop that bill.
Glenn Beck at his finest, by the way. But maybe that's all power plays. What about the substance? Senator DeMint may be in Dutch with the GOP for going all mavericky on them, supporting Tea Party candidates too far out of the mainstream for even a tsunami to carry to shore. But now that the elections are over, the Tea Party's patron saint has just announced that on the most fundamental issue, government spending and debt, he's playing ball. One day after the election, DeMint told the National Journal he will not stop Congress from raising the debt ceiling above $14.3 trillion, something the U.S. must do to avoid defaulting on its debt payments and traumatizing the global economy. You don't have much choice, DeMint says, adding that even if he did just admit he has no other option, he might try to get some spending cuts in return, a tactic the Tea Party hates. Compromise to prevent an outcome the Tea Party wants. A government shutdown. Last night I used an analogy about the Tea Party asking the GOP, "Can we come over tonight?" And the GOP responding, "Not tonight, I got a big meeting in the morning." Now we know who the meeting was with. J.P. Morgan and Goldman Sachs. Literally the day after the big Tea Party night, the big no more bank bailouts victory, the expected new chairman of the House Financial Services Committee, Spencer Backus, emailed the new banking regulators telling them not to enforce the new Volcker rule, preventing banks from playing the same risky financial games that led to the mortgage crisis and the recession. Why let the banks resume this stuff? Because J.P. Morgan and Goldman Sachs told him it would hurt their profits, specifically including one Goldman Sachs managing director who, quote, testified that the Volcker rule will easily work to the competitive disadvantage of U.S. institutions and ultimately lead U.S. firms to find ways to game the system. In other words, Goldman Sachs made so much money after Clinton and the Republican Congress killed the old rules that the new rules would just make them game the system, so just don't bother enforcing the rules. With us on this tonight, Rolling Stone contributing editor Matt Taibbi, also the author of Griftopia, Bubble Machines, Vampire Squids, and the Long Con that is Breaking America. Great, thanks for coming in, Matt.
Thanks a lot, Keith.
Jim DeMint is open to increasing the federal debt in the broadest sense of that term.
What a surprise.
But the Tea Party should hate this, but is it because they don't understand what a Jim DeMint does?
I think that, everybody should have seen this coming. This is what we saw under the Bush years. The Republicans made an awful lot of noise about cutting spending. What they tended to do was threaten to cut social programming, but in the end, they always increased the budgets. Year after year, we had expanded budgets and an expanded federal government, and that's exactly what they're doing here. They're going to promise cuts on the one hand, but in the end, they're really not going to do it.
But the debt and cutting it is the litmus test of litmus tests for the Tea Party. What does it say when Jim DeMint says to them, well, yeah, we have to raise our debt? I thought you knew that.
Well, that is the Tea Party. There's really nothing else besides that. If that's the core issue of the entire movement, and if it's invalidated within 24 hours of the election, what does that tell you about what this was all about?
Is there a rationalization that's going to be provided inside the Tea Party that this is somehow, well, we meant for it to happen, to quote Pee Wee Herman?
Well, no, I think there's going to be a period of disillusionment here, and I think what they're going to find out, especially with this announcement with Goldman Sachs and J.P. Morgan Chase, ultimately they're going to find a way to make enemies even of these people who they've considered their own champions. They're going to band together, and like Michelle Bachmann, they're going to back themselves into a corner again. But that announcement of Spencer Bachus is really a remarkable thing.
What exactly is he giving Morgan and Chase?
Well, why do you have a Volcker Rule? The Volcker Rule is designed to prevent federally insured depository institutions like banks from engaging in high-risk casino gambling. Because what happens when they blow themselves up in a speculative bubble? We have to rescue them. The taxpayer has to bail them out. The Volcker Rule was specifically designed to prevent the eventuality of huge taxpayer bailouts. And 24 hours after the election, we did this. They're already talking about this. It's going to lead to more bailouts. It's amazing that the Tea Party voters don't understand this.
But so in some, what do you think happened here? Did Republicans just sell the Tea Party out, or did they sell themselves to two masters, the big public front of the Tea Party, and more importantly, the high bankrolls that actually are running and essentially manufactured the Tea Party?
I think it's a little of both. I think I view the Tea Party as essentially a giant bait-and-switch movement. They sold all these voters on the idea that they're going to get the government off their backs, but in reality, what's going to end up happening is they're going to get the government off Goldman Sachs' backs. That's what this is really all about, and I think the people are going to be very surprised to find out what the particulars are.
Not to generalize, but are the members of the Tea Party the actual people who had complaints and stood there with signs, even if they really didn't know why they were there? There was an anger, and they had some basic hints. Are they sharp enough to know that they've been sold down the river this quickly?
I don't think they'll figure it out right away. I think they will figure it out by the end of this 2 years when they don't see that there's been any action on the fronts that they really, really care about, or they purport to care about. Again, these are the same people who said they cared about spending during the Bush years and ignored it year after year when these budgets were expanded.
Matt Taibbi, contributing editor at Rolling Stone. Once again, thanks for coming in tonight.
Thanks.